Today we'll be looking into how different microphone positions can affect how your voice will sound on stream and in your videos, and how you can take advantage of it. We'll also touch on your gain settings on your microphone and why it is definitely important to set that up correctly. Because if you don't set that up correctly, it will start sounding really bad. Microphone placement. Now you're probably thinking it does not matter, but it can influence the way you will sound when being recorded. There are a few things that need to be said for this section to make sense. The easiest way to explain polar patterns is to just show you. Now, you've probably seen these on every microphone you've ever bought. They actually do mean something really important. So I'm going to give you the quick rundown of what these mean. So basically, the circle represents a 360 circle around the microphone. And the lines represent how much attenuation your sound will get depending on what direction the sound wave hits the microphone. So for example, the red line in this picture means 500 Hertz. And the way to read it is, the more closer to the center the line is, the more the signal will get attenuated. So for example, on the cardioid one, it will pick up everything in front of it and then start attenuating the sound the further back it gets behind the microphone. For the purposes of this video, we'll be talking about cardioid. But what about the other two polar patterns that were there, like figure 8 and omnidirectional? The omnidirectional polar pattern means that it has no bias on what direction the sound is coming into the microphone from. Therefore, it won't attenuate the sound from any direction. This is really useful for live filming and TV shoots, as you need to conceal the microphone in weird places, which can often obscure where the microphone will pick up from, such as your chin or your clothes. But because it's omnidirectional and will pick up everything around it, it will still pick up your voice because it's still in the line of sight with your voice. Now, another common type of polar pattern is a figure 8. And a figure 8 will capture everything behind it and in front of it and reject everything from the sides. This is useful if you want to use it for a podcast. In case you only have one microphone, you can use that figure 8 polar pattern to capture the host and the guest and reject everything from the sides, which would help reduce background noise. Reverb is basically a sound wave bouncing off an object and hitting your ear again with a slight delay. For example, when you speak, your voice is emitting a sound wave, and that sound wave will travel, bounce off an object or wall, come back to your ear with a slight delay. And that's why you get reverb. Reverb is basically the sound constantly bouncing off walls until it completely dissipates. The same thing happens for a microphone, because the microphone is essentially like an ear. And this is where polar patterns come in. Because like I said, reverb is basically the sound bouncing off an object or wall and coming back into our ear with a slight delay. Now, with a cardioid microphone or hypercardioid, supercardioid, they tend to reject stuff from behind them and some of the sides. What that means is when the sound wave reflects off the surface or object behind the microphone and then comes back into the back of the cardioid microphone, it will reject some of it. It will dissipate some of the sound because it's designed to reject sound behind it. And what that means is because there is less sound getting in from the back of the microphone, you'll get less perceived reverb. You won't get rid of all the reverb, but cardioid will definitely help. So now this gets thrown around a lot, but what is the correct way of positioning your microphone? The answer is, there is no answer. It's really a case-by-case basis of what is available and how you want to sound. In order to understand where to position your microphone, you have to understand how the proximity effect works, because this plays a huge factor in how you will sound during your recording. Okay, but I won't go into every single detail about the proximity effect, but I can give you a rundown of the simplified version. Pretty much the gist of it is, the more direct your sound source is, the more low end you'll pick up. So for an example of the proximity effect, here is my NT2A. I'm going to speak into the microphone and tilt my head around to show you the low end frequencies dropping in and out. 7, 8, 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. See, it still picks up my voice pretty nice, but you're sacrificing a bit of low end. This sort of recording is called off-axis recording, and we'll explain in a little bit why it could be useful. You can use this to advantage if you want to get a particular sound, such as the podcast sound, which is usually they'll have the microphone like this, and you'll be talking like this, right up and personal with the microphone. While we're on the subject, you would think it would be required to be having the microphone directly centered to your mouth to get the best audio recording possible. That's not necessarily true. Remember polar patterns? Well, you can use that to your advantage here with this technique called off-axis recording. So this is an example of off-axis recording. So the microphone is actually not in front of my face, but it's, as the name implies, off-axis to my mouth. So instead of center, it's now on an angle. This is a NT1A cardioid microphone, so it will capture everything in front of it and reject everything behind it to some degree. Notice how it will still clearly pick up my voice with no issues. The only thing you're sacrificing is slight loss of the low ends, but as we'll discuss later, that's not going to be really much of an issue. If you want the microphone up to your face, that's fine, and that is okay. But you have to remember the proximity effect. Closer and more direct your voice is to the microphone, the more low ends you'll pick up, and that can be unwanted. There is sort of an optimal distance you need to be from the microphone to get a good quality recording, and luckily there's a trick for that. Extend your hand like this and put it to your mouth, and your pinky touching the microphone, and there, that's your optimal distance. All right, another thing we need to cover is plosives. Plosives, the best way to describe it is a bunch of air hitting the microphone, like a large gush of air. Here are some examples like the p sound, like p, 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 p. Here it is without the pop filter. You can see it clearly clips the microphone pretty easily without any trouble. These plosives can clip the microphone and can cause unrecoverable audio. When I mean unrecoverable, I mean you can't fix it. Don't worry, there's a few ways to tackle the issue that is really easy. One way of tackling it is using a pop filter or a windsock, like this one. A pop filter is basically like a filter that sits in between you and the microphone and captures all the gushing of air, only letting the sound waves pass. A pop filter and a windsock is a must. If you're going to use a microphone, please at least get like a windsock or a pop filter. It will save your life pretty much. Now, what if you don't want to use a pop filter or windsock? Well, we just talked about it earlier, the off-axis recording. The off-axis recording can also prevent plosives. Why? Because your mouth is not directly facing the microphone. So the p sounds are going this way, not this way into the microphone. Now, you might be thinking about low frequencies. You might assume that you want all the low frequencies, all of them to come into your ear hole and sound good. But actually, you don't really want them. Most people will cut below 80 hertz. Just, they'll roll it off. Removing low ends can help a lot. So say I'm like here and I'm doing my recording and the low ends are very muffled. Like it's causing the microphone to clip and everything. It's also gonna make your sound and your voice very boomy, and you don't want it to be very boomy. You want it to be very clear and concise. So I'm gonna give you an example of what happens when you remove the low ends on the microphone. So as you can see here, it should sound very boomy, like the low ends are just completely obliterating everything. But if you turn them on, say from here, so now I'm cutting some of the low ends. If I cut it more, now listen to my voice. It is not as boomy as it was before. Therefore, it won't sound as muffled when listening on, say, a big speaker set or for like a subwoofer connected. Okay, I'm going to quickly show you how to apply an EQ to remove those low ends. I want you to download these plugins from this website. It's free and they're really good too. So first go down here and click the three dots, click filters. Then you want to go to the plus button here and add VST2X plugin. Then you want to go here to the drop down menu, select Re-EQ, which should come up when you install the plugins. Click open. Okay, so this part's really simple. Make sure you click 1. On the type, select high pass. Over here on the frequency, type 80. And that's it. You've removed the low ends. It's really that simple. Oh, we can't talk about microphones without talking about the gain setting, because I reckon it's the most misunderstood thing of all time. So I'll simplify it now by saying gain does not equal volume. While it is true it turns up the microphone, but it should not be used as a volume control. I'll explain why in a second. Gain is simply how hot the signal comes into your recording device. Think of it like cooking food. Cook it too hot and it burns. If you send in the microphone signal too high, it will clip. So for the purpose of this video, we'll be talking about digital clipping, which is a completely different scope to analog clipping. So what is digital clipping? Digital clipping is when the signal is so high that the audio converter just translates it as a bunch of ones in binary. Here is a graphic that you can look at that should summarize what I'm talking about. When you record just a bunch of ones, you're essentially recording no data. You're flatlining it. There is no data coming in and the recording is horribly distorted. Now, if you have a gain setting that is too high, your audio will reach the top here and it will just write basically nothing. I can simulate this. This is a simulation of digital clipping. As you can see, the audio is just unrecoverable. It is completely gone. You can't do anything. It is screwed. To find the best gain setting, try this. Speak and shout as loud as you will probably be during your live broadcast, and adjust the gain so that your loudest point won't clip. Now you'll probably notice that you'll be quiet when speaking normally after doing that. Don't worry, this can be easily fixed with compression. I'll give you a quick rundown of how to normalize the volume for your vocals, so that way on stream you'll be at a constant level. Okay, so here's a quick tutorial on how to fix the volume of your voice after changing the gain settings. So you want to go to your audio mixer, go to your audio device, click the button, then click filters. Then you want to go to the plus and add a compressor. Okay, so look at the threshold here. So basically everything above this threshold is going to get compressed. So if we look at the threshold, to find the best setting, look at your volume meter here and see where the meter goes up to. Usually I take about 5 decibels. Add about 5 decibels. So like if it was at 30, I'll go to 35. So we will set this to about, we'll say 36, just to be a bit safe. Now we want the ratio turned down a bit because 10's a bit too harsh. We'll say about 7. So now it will stop clipping. So for example, compared to without the compressor. So if you suddenly shout, it won't clip the meter in OBS. The final step is to just turn up the gain. Usually you want to aim around 1510 here. So just turn that up all the way up until we hit where we want to go. So there you go. So you'll be loud and you can shout without it clipping. For example, bah! And that's all you have to do. Simple, easy, effective. What, you still here? Yo, thank you for watching today's video. This is the first time I made a video production of this scope. Research, scripting, editing, reshooting, re-editing, all that crap. If you enjoyed this video, consider a thumbs up or consider subscribing. Also consider following my Twitch because that's where I do things. Anyways, I don't know how to end this video.